Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Azure Sentinel session for the Empower 2021 event. My name is George Abou-Samra, and I'm a Principal Consultant and Security Community Lead here at ProServeIT. During today's session, we'll be talking about Azure Sentinel, which is a security product that is part of Microsoft's arsenal of security products. Now, to start, we'll talk about some of the challenges organizations are having when dealing with security. Then we'll be giving you a brief overview of Azure Sentinel. We will then provide you with a quick demo of how Azure Sentinel can help protect your organization from bad actors. And finally, we'll go through a Q&A session to answer any questions that you might have. Now, given that we only have a limited time together, I'll be focusing more on the content today. So if you do have any questions throughout the presentation, please enter them into the Q&A section, and our team will collect those questions and get back to you as soon as possible. Or you can always reach out to us with your questions at cloud@proserveit.com, and we'll be happy to answer them. Today, organizations are faced with the incredibly difficult task of trying to protect their expanding digital estate from increasing cyber threats. Now, the move to the cloud and a more mobile workforce has pushed the border of your organization beyond the boundary of your physical network. Your data, your users, and systems are everywhere today. A lot of thought and planning has to go into how to protect everything in your organization, from your user identities, to data, to devices, to applications, so on and so forth. Now, the security operations mission of protecting an organization's information is becoming increasingly difficult for many reasons. And I've listed some of the reasons here on the screen. Now, for one, attack techniques, frequency, and complexity are evolving extremely fast. A typical attack can span different parts and cross various resource types. It might start from an email, proceed to an endpoint like your workstation or your server, spread to a cloud service or to a database, and it can involve multiple users and accounts and so on. Another reason is that security teams are under strain from the expanding range of defensive technologies and increasing cloud adoption. Especially during COVID, where the majority of people are working from home, security teams have to figure out how to make sure you're safe when you're not in the office. One other reason is that the investigation process is complex. It's time-consuming and it's expensive. Now, when you deal with a security incident, every second counts. And SecOps personnel are handling a threat, that might jeopardize your organization. The clock is ticking fast, but investigation requires highly skilled security analysts and can often take days or even weeks. And the shortage of SecOps talents make this problem even worse. The need for skilled security professionals has greatly increased, and supply cannot meet the current or future demand. Now, when you're part of a security operations team, the team works around the clock 24/7 to detect and respond to incidents, which most organizations don't have today. Now that we've talked about some of the security challenges organizations are facing, let's explain how Azure Sentinel can help eliminate those challenges. So what is Azure Sentinel? Azure Sentinel is a scalable, cloud-native security information and event management, or SIEM for short, and security orchestration and automation and response, or SOAR for short. Now, SIEM allows us to collect and analyze event data in real time, and it'll give us the ability to detect at an early stage of any targeted attacks or any data breaches. And the SOAR component helps teams make the jump from just simply collecting that data to streamlining security operations by using playbooks to automate many of the tasks required to respond to security events today. Now, Azure Sentinel works by correlating different security logs and signals from all sources across your applications, your services, your infrastructure, networks, and users, wherever they reside, whether it's on premises, in Azure, or any other cloud platform. And Azure Sentinel alerts us when any anomaly in these events are detected. Now, this end-to-end solution for security operations can be broken down to 4 main phases: collect, detect, investigate, and respond. Now, when we talk collect, you want to collect logs and data from various sources, such as your Office 365 environment, Azure, your servers, your workstations, some firewalls, so on and so forth. And once you collect that data, you want to be able to detect these incidents or anomalies within that data. And to do so, Microsoft has various different options of creating different rules. So for example, I can say I want to generate an alert when someone successfully signs into my account from outside of Canada. I know that I am within Canada and I should be signing in within Canada. But if at any time I see that someone had tried to sign in from my account elsewhere, I want it to trigger an alert. I want to know about it. Then we'll reach the investigation phase. We want to investigate the alert and find the root cause in a very short period of time. Once we investigate, we want to respond to that threat in a timely fashion to eliminate the threat and hopefully using automation when possible. And that is done through playbooks in the Sentinel world. So to recap, we want to be able to collect as much data as possible from the various sources. Once we detect those, once we collect that information, we want to detect the threats. Once we detect the threat, we want to start investigating as soon as possible to find the root cause, and finally respond to the threats in a timely fashion. Now, the success criteria of having Azure Sentinel run an environment is to help an organization protect itself against these attacks. And the types of attacks that we're looking to protect are anything around your identities, endpoints, applications, your data, your email, and infrastructure. Now, Azure Sentinel makes this possible by capturing information from those various sources and alerting us when those anomalies occur and automatically remediate if able to. Now, when we talk security, we look to take advantage of security analytics, which is the process of using data collection and analysis to monitor and detect threats. Now, this can be broken down into 5 types of data analytics. The first one being descriptive analytics, which answers the question, what happened? You want to look at comprehensive data, accurate data, and live data. You want to monitor the status of your machines, your devices, your products, and your assets. And you want to assess if things are going according to plan or to alert people if anomalies arise. The next one is diagnostic analysis, which answers the question, why did it happen? You want to examine that data from multiple angles to understand why something is happening. And the goal here is to find the root cause of a problem in order to fix it or to improve something. And that something could be either a process or a service or a product. Then we get into predictive analysis, which answers the question, what could happen? You want to calculate the probability that something will happen within a specific time frame based on the historical data that you've collected. Then we jump into the proactive analysis, which answers the question, can it be prevented? Now, can a threat be avoided before it happens? And in order to do that, it's imperative to locate and correct any potential vulnerability before they can be exploited by cyber criminals. And finally, the prescriptive analysis, which answers the question, what should be done? This is the set of recommended actions as a result of a diagnosis or a prediction. So with all those in place, this can help us understand how Azure Sentinel can answer all of the questions by having a proactive approach to security in the organization. Now, let's go over into a little demo environment here, just to walk you through Azure Sentinel and show you some of its capabilities. So as you can see here, this is kind of the overview dashboard of Azure Sentinel. It's a bird's eye view of what we're going to see throughout these multiple components here. Now we can take a look here that it has collected a large number of events over the last 30 days. It has generated 37 alerts over the last 30 days, and that has caused 13 incidents. And we can see here all the events that are being captured over the course of that 30 days. Each color here for each bar represents a specific data set that is being ingested into Sentinel. And depending what we connect to Sentinel is what we will monitor eventually. So to start with Sentinel, first thing we want to do is connect our data sources into the environment. And today, there are 81 different connectors, whether they're Microsoft related or third party, that you can immediately connect straight out of the tenant, straight out of Azure Sentinel with very little configuration. So basically, let's take an example of Office 365. So I've connected Office 365 to this specific demo tenant, and it's capturing information related to SharePoint and Exchange. And I can even have it capture information from Teams, so we can monitor Teams. Now, if you follow these prerequisites, that's all you need in order to incorporate Office 365 into Sentinel. So once I activate my global administrator right, I'll be able to select Teams and then have Sentinel ingest logs from Teams, and then I can monitor Teams from there. Other connectors that you might want to include are related to Azure Activity, Azure Active Directory, Azure Resources. So in this case, I want to take a look at some sign-in logs. And to do so, I need to connect Azure Active Directory. I've already connected this in the past, so we should be able to see sign-in logs occurring in our tenant. And you can see here that it is connected and data has been flowing into the tenant. After we connect our logs, or after we connect our data sources, we have recommended workbooks, which are visual representations of the code that we are generating or typing in. Or we can just simply run a query just to show you what that would look like real quick. Basically, we have all that data ingested. We want to make some sense out of it. So in this case, this little tiny query here is taking a look at the sign-in logs table, and it's taking the first 1,000 logs out of this table, and it's sorting them by the time generated. So if I take this one, for example, I can expand on that and see a whole bunch of information about this sign-in activity. You know, I can take a look at the time it was generated, where it was generated from. So in this case, Azure AD. It's a sign-in log. Result type equals 0 means it was successful. The user that was involved, the location, Canada in this case, and a whole bunch of other information. The browser type, location, IP address, so on and so forth. So if I wanted to take information about all the sign-in logs that are not successful, so result type does not equal 0, and I run that query, it's going to give me all this information about the failed sign-in attempts. Let's take a look at the second one here as an example. And this has failed because of an invalid password, or we entered an expired password. So we have all this information in front of us, but how can we make sense out of it? To do so, let's go back to our Azure Sentinel environment. I will walk you through workbooks in just a second, but basically what we want to do and make sense out of these logs is to create analytic rules. Now in this case, I've just created one for the sake of this demo, but we have a lot of rule templates that we can use straight out of the box from Microsoft, or we can create our own custom rules. Now this specific rule that I've created is tied to a specific user account signing in from a specific IP address. So I'm just saying if this Sentinel test user signs in from this IP address, I want you to notify me and alert me and take action on it. So once this rule has been created, I can even attach something called playbooks, which is the automated response, which is the sole component of Azure Sentinel. So in my case, my automated response is to send me an email and a decision to make based on this alert, based on what we're seeing from this specific incident. All right, I've triggered this alert recently, so I will show you the process of what it looks like. Before I get into that, let's take a quick look at workbooks. So workbooks are visual representations of code. And let me take you into another environment that have a little more workbooks here. So basically, we want just a visual representation of what we're typing in as code. So rather than seeing that in a table format, I can see that in graphs, in charts, in maps, in tiles, so on and so forth. So each one of those graphs that you see here, or charts or diagrams, have a code underneath them that is displaying this information for us. So in this case, I have a time range filter here that I can mess around with. I wanted to take a look at all alerts from all products. And this is the number of security alerts that we've received within 24 hours for this specific client. And if I expand that to 30 days, we can see the number of alerts that we have been capturing and dealing with. And a nice view here at the bottom, you can actually see over the course of the 30 days where people have successfully signed in from. So we have over 30K sign-ins from Canada, from Vietnam, United States, France, India, and a couple of unknowns. And the unknowns are basically because of IPv6, so we're not able to really detect their exact location, but it just shows up as unknown here. Now we can see all the failed locations. So in this case, for this specific client, there has been a little less than 5,000 failed sign-ins from Canada and a whole bunch of other ones from all over the world. Now, this can mean that you are under attack. A lot of people are trying to use your username and password to sign in. Probably the ones in Canada, maybe it's just a misconfigured password, or it's an actual attack from within the country. So this kind of gives you a very high level view of the types of attacks that are coming in. And in this case, they're all trying to sign into your account from the various locations around the world. We can also have multiple tabs within a workbook. So if I want to take a look at SOC efficiency, how efficient the SOC is in taking ownership of the incidents, how long it's taking us to triage the incident, how long it's taking us to close the incidents, so on and so forth. And here we can also drag these bars over here to just take a look at a specific time frame rather than the entire log area. And as well as other tabs such as billing information, we can see how much Azure Sentinel is actually costing us to ingest this data and to host it within the cloud environment. Now keep in mind, this is a cloud native solution, so there isn't any infrastructure that you have to build just to set it up. It's all cloud based, so out of the box you can connect whatever you want in there. Now let's go back to our demo tenant there. And let's take a look at that alert that we had generated. So if we go to incidents, you can see here that there's a login from a malicious IP. It generated one alert. This is the time. It hasn't been assigned to anybody and it's still a new status. So if I click on that, and I have way more information here about this alert. I can even dig deeper about it through the logs that I just showed you earlier. It's just going to type the query here for me. And it's going to tell me there were 2 events that occurred with this account, and they both were a sign-in attempt. One was because an account was expired. The other one was a successful sign-in. So that would allow us to dig deeper into the investigation process. Another thing that we can do is we can view the full details about this specific alert and investigate and see whether this has been incorporated with other attacks as well. Now here, I'm just going to close those bars so I can reopen them for you. But basically, this is the alert that had popped up. This account signed in from this IP address, and it triggered this login from malicious IP alert. Now, if I want to take a look at this account, I just highlight my mouse on top of it, and then I get more information about this account here. There are 32 other alerts related to this one. If I click on that, it's going to expand the view and show me all the other alerts that have been tied to this specific account. And if I can do the exact same thing with the IP address. So we can see all the related alerts from this IP address and try and correlate to see if they make sense. Are they related? Is it the same attack, or is it a completely separate different attack? So just by having this view here, it gives us the ability to investigate to see what other machines were involved, what users were involved, what IP addresses were involved. And we have a timeline view to be able to quickly identify what was the first step the hackers took, what was the second one, and so on and so forth in a timeline fashion. So let's say we did discover that this account was compromised and we wanted to remediate. We can either have Sentinel automatically remediate the incident for us by using the playbooks, or in my case, I'm going to have the playbook send me an email and I would decide the actions to take on that specific email, or on that specific incident rather. All right, so I ran this playbook, send email alert and decision, which automatically should run once the alert is triggered. But for the sake of this demo, I'm just going to run this manually for now. And I am going to get an email. Let me just pop that over here. There it is. So it's asking us request for your input. And then you're going to see here some details about this alert. Login for malicious IP. This is the description, the time generated, the severity, so on and so forth. And at the bottom here, we have a few options to select. Now those options are built into the playbook itself. So if I just show you very quickly what this playbook looks like. Playbooks are built on logic apps. So if you've ever used logic apps in the past, it's kind of a step-by-step process where, once the step is completed, go to the next one. Once it's passed, go to the next one, so on and so forth. So this is kind of the logic app or the playbook that sends us an email and tells us to make a decision in this switch over here. And each case is the decision that you see in the email. Now I'm going to decide that this account is actually compromised. So what do I want Sentinel to do? I want it to automatically revoke all the AD sessions using Graph API. I want it to block the user. So account enabled equals no. I want it to reset the password and set the password as the variable that I've selected up here. And finally, I want it to send me an email in an HTML format similar to this one to tell me the actions taken on this account. So let's go back to our email and I'm going to click compromised account just to see what that process looks like. All right, I confirmed compromised account. I am going to get another email. And once that's in, I'll pull it up here for you to see. All right. So here it is. Now we can see user Sentinel test was involved in part of a security incident. As part of the remediation process, the user sign-in sessions have been revoked, account has been blocked, and the password was reset. The user will need to re-authenticate to all applications, and this is their temporary password. All right, so let's give that a copy. Let me open up a browser here to show you what it looks like. So in this case, you can see here Sentinel test, block sign-in is no. Let me refresh that. And now you can see that it's a block sign-in yes. So the trigger worked, it blocked this user from signing in. So now if I want to sign back in, it's not going to let me until I change this back to a no. So let's edit that. Let's change block sign-in to no and click save. There you go. Now, I'm just going to sign out of this account and sign back in using the Sentinel test account using the temporary password. And it's going to request for me to update my password upon sign on. So let me log in using that Sentinel test account. I'm going to type in the randomly generated password that we had received. And you can see here we have to update our password. So as soon as I type in a new password here, it's going to allow this user back into the environment. So we automatically remediated the account just by clicking the compromised account button. We can even have that automatically run when we're 100% sure that this rule is going to trigger a compromised account alert. All right, so that is playbooks. We've talked about incidents, we've talked about workbooks, we've talked about playbooks, we've talked about data connectors and analytics. Now, just very briefly, let's talk about some threat intelligence. Now, what that is basically just data captured from different sources across the world that give us information about which IPs are malicious, which host names are malicious, which file hashes are malicious. And if any of those URLs, files, emails have come in, it's automatically going to trigger an alert for us to let us know that, hey, this event has been seen across the world with multiple clients. It's also being shown in your environment as well. So let me trigger an alert for you to identify this threat and act upon it immediately. So that's kind of a very high overview of Azure Sentinel and what it can do for you. Let's go back to our PowerPoint presentation here. So ProServeIT has an offering that is built around Azure Sentinel, and it's called Alarm Guardian. Now, you can think about this offering as getting security for your home, but instead of protecting your home, we'll be protecting your IT environment, such as Office 365, Azure, your servers, your workstations, firewalls, so on and so forth. Anything that has logs, we should be able to ingest it into Sentinel and monitor it. Now, by signing up for Alarm Guardian, ProServeIT would be able to keep an eye on your environment from security risks 24/7. As an offer for nonprofit organizations, we will set up Azure Sentinel in your environment for free to monitor Office 365. And this offer is valid until February 10, 2021. So as long as you reach out before February 10th, we will deploy an environment free of charge. Now, depending on how complex your environment is, we have multiple packages that could fit your need. And we can definitely discuss those in more detail to find the appropriate package for your organization. Now, one thing that you have to keep in mind is that anybody could be a victim of cybercrime. It's a matter of when they get hit and not if they get hit. And we're seeing a lot of both targeted and non-targeted attacks. So it doesn't really matter what your business is or how many employees you have. If you have an exposed vulnerability, it will be used and abused. Now, this message goes out to all organizations and a special focus on non-for-profit organizations. Non-profit organizations are prime targets since hackers already know that they have funds coming in, through various methods such as donations or government grants. They also know that non-profit organizations don't usually have the proper budget to invest in security and securing their assets. One other major reason why hackers target nonprofit organizations is that if they gain access to a nonprofit organization, they can lead their way into an affiliated larger for-profit organization that could be extorted for more money. I hope I raised some awareness here today about security, and in particular for the nonprofit organizations. Remember that security doesn't sleep, so you have to make sure that you're protected 24/7 by 365. And we're here to help you do so if needed be. Now, as for the Q&A section, please type any question you might have, and our team will collect those questions and get back to you with the answers as soon as possible once this event has ended. So I just want to thank you all for your time today, and I hope we get to speak soon. Take care and stay safe.